So if you don't go after your desires and what your heart really desires, if you don't pursue those things, you're kind of spitting in the face of your entire upbringing. You're spitting in the face of all the people around you that have influenced you. You're spitting in the face of this amazing cosmological miracle that we're all living in.
Yeah, I sent money to my girlfriend and said like, all right, don't give me the money back if I don't have it done by this day. That was how I built a website for my product in one day. That was how I shot my first YouTube video, something I really didn't want to do. In the very beginning of coaching, I was scared to even post in the group. I wrote on the first post that I was getting physically nauseous from like making my first post in the group.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am joined here by the amazing Taylor, a coaching client of mine, absolute legend of a human being. And Taylor, you achieved a hell of a lot in your coaching, most notably in mindset, in opening up to others, being more honest, as well as some other cool things like moving to a better location to really go after your goals, being more honest with yourself about wanting things like a threesome and an awesome sex life, negotiating with your boss to get a part-time work schedule so that you could work on your own business, designing a working product that you've already sold to a few buyers, getting started with being a content creator on YouTube, coaching others, and the big one, learning to love yourself, even though that was something that you had struggled with for quite a few years. You've come a hell of a long way in a pretty short amount of time, but let's start right at the beginning. Can you describe to us your mindset and some of the challenges that you had before you joined the coaching program and how those sort of shifted?
I'll start with learning to love yourself because I think that's where it started for me. It's kind of hard to remember because even though this was only a few months ago, it feels like a different person.
You very much come across as a different person for sure.
As far as learning to love yourself, how I initially got in contact with you was I did one of your 1-hour coaching calls that you started. We talked through the idea that I don't love myself. You basically put it to me as like, you have this idea that you don't love yourself and you think that's the reason that everything else in your life isn't working, which is like a thing that we all tend to do. Is like this one thing. If that one thing would change, like everything else would be different. I don't know what it is about our brains, and so you explained that concept to me, and then you just straight up walked me through like the Byron Katie way of breaking things down. Like, is it true you don't love yourself? I was like, yes, for sure. The next question is like, can you absolutely know that? And I said, no. Okay, you seized on that. Like, you said no. Like, what are some reasons you said no? I was like, okay, well, I guess there's not like 0 things I do for myself, you know? I take a shower. Like that's a very small, like act of love towards yourself you do every day. I went through a bunch of these different little things I do like that. And I was like, oh, okay. I guess I don't not love myself. That's interesting. That's an idea that I just repeated to myself for years and years. I don't even know, like maybe 10 years. I don't know. And it was like 20 minutes. You genuinely helped me like reframe that in a way that I was like, oh, dude, like I actually love myself quite a bit. It's not 1 or 0. There's all these different levels of loving yourself. And I'm already like pretty high and I could go a little higher, but like, it's certainly not 0. I think that was the very biggest thing from the beginning. And that literally took like 20 minutes. And I was like, holy fuck, just coming from someone who like heard your content on podcasts and heard you talk about coaching. It kind of sounded like, yeah, that's cool. Like, but like a lot of people on the internet offer coaching. Like, is that really going to do anything like actually affect your life? That was just like, boom, 20 minutes, like whole life changed, honestly. And I was like, damn. From there, like, yeah, I just wanted to talk to you about more things.
This is the power of limiting beliefs and how much they hold us back, right? To explain what you touched on there. Mm-hmm. Often in life, we will, if we haven't reached our goals or we don't feel like we're making a lot of progress, we will go hunting for that like one big reason why we think it's not happening. And a lot of the time when we fixate on that one thing, we then add extra steps in the self-improvement process. What I mean is, let's say your goal is, I want to go outside and talk to women. Instead of saying, I'm just going to go outside and say hello to them, we will look at the fact that we haven't done it yet. And we'll say, okay, so there must be something wrong with me. And that's why I haven't done it yet. Maybe it's because I'm too skinny. Okay, I need to fix my skinniness before I can go outside and talk to women. And then you will add extra steps in that you need to accomplish. You'll say, I have to go to the gym for the next 3 years before I can go and talk to women. Or I have to learn how to love myself. Or I have to do any of this stuff. And you add all these extra steps in, and all you're really doing is procrastinating. And so many of us do that. It's funny because the more I talk about certain topics, the more I get emails and comments and coaching clients telling me that they really struggle with this thing. Self-love is a big one. If I do videos and content talking about loving yourself and like, hey, it's really beneficial to love yourself because it means you're more productive. It means you're happier. It means other people like you more and all of that. I'll do these like positive, motivating videos, and people will take that and go, oh shit, I'm not doing those things. There must be something wrong with me. I need to put all of my goals on hold, and I'm not going to go outside and talk to women, or I'm not going to go to the gym, or I'm not going to make any money because I have to fix myself and learn to love myself. And it's like, no, what do I say all the time? You can be a, quote, train wreck of a human being. I am. You don't have to fix yourself, but you can still take action even as a train wreck. So even as a person who doesn't fully love himself, you can still be taking action. And yeah, that was one of the things I got across to you. And more than anything, it's like you're already doing a hell of a lot of things to love yourself. Most people are. Most people watching this content. If you're watching this content, that is a form of self-love. That is an act of self-love. You're trying to better yourself. So it's funny how we have these limiting beliefs that we just fucking fixate on, right, for our entire life. And then it just takes one conversation with someone to just go like, bam. It's like they snap you out of it. The hypnosis disappears and you go, holy shit. Yeah. I've just been telling myself a story.
The answer to that really was like just someone that you respect already, kind of just meeting you on your level, just listening to you and talking you through something, like very simple, like human connection. That blew that away. After we did that, you were like, oh yeah, man, like I just talked you through Byron Katie's, like that's just straight up Byron Katie. Like that's just page 1 Byron Katie.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh shit. He keeps saying that lady's name on those podcasts. Like, damn, that's not just like a self-help book you read. Like that could actually change your life.
That's a beautiful segue to my next question, which is tell us about the concept of everything is just a story.
Kind of going back to the beginning of when I got into coaching, what I said was that I wanted to work on business stuff. And that was my number one goal. I worked on that a bit, but a lot of what we worked on was just mindset stuff. It seemed like what was more important just ended up percolating to the surface. And that was mindset stuff. Yeah, everything is a story was a big one. Because I think I just wanted to talk through a lot of things, a lot of big picture things about life. The thing we just kept coming back to is that you can believe whatever you want to believe. And there's all different ways to say that. A lot of people will say you can change your beliefs. So just like keep the ones that are most empowering to you. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, that's the same thing with like everything is a story. I was kind of like primed for this. I'd been thinking about this idea for a long time. I first encountered that idea like 10 years ago. I read this book called The 4 Agreements. In that book, he kind of breaks it down like everyone's living in this waking dream. You're dreaming at night and you're dreaming during the day. It's just at night. Like your dreams are not happening in order. During the day, everything's just happening chronologically, but it's still a dream because like it's still, everyone's has their own perception. That kind of like hinted at this idea that everything's a story. And I just kept thinking about that. So I was really like ready to hear it when we talked about it on a lot of our calls, this idea that everything's a dream. And it just clicked into place for me. And
yeah, you definitely were primed. And I think for anyone listening, maybe another way of phrasing it is, and I loved using this example, do this fun exercise. Tell yourself over and over and over in your head that the world sucks and everybody's an asshole and everybody's mean to you and existence is suffering and all of that. Keep repeating that in your head. Repeat that thousands of times and go walking around outside. Just do it for an hour or two. Just keep repeating that and notice things. Notice how the sky looks. Notice how people react to you. Notice how people talk to you. Notice if people avoid you. Notice if little basic things like dogs come up to you as often. The next day, go outside, but this time I want you to repeat over and over and over again, everything is wonderful. Life is awesome. Everything's okay. People are nice. People are beautiful. Everything is an opportunity. Nothing bad ever happens to me. Keep repeating that shit in your head like a mantra and walk around and notice the same things. And what you will notice is the sky seems brighter. People seem to react better to you. Your body language improves. Dogs and animals seem to come up to you more. And this isn't some magical woo-woo bullshit. It's like, no, you are changing your behavior by changing your beliefs. You will literally walk differently when you believe that life is wonderful. You literally have open body language, and we're all very good at picking up on body language. Your voice and your tonality is more welcoming and loving and warm and encouraging. And people want to react well to that. Dogs will come up to you and go, this guy isn't a threat. This guy seems loving and warm and wonderful. Changing that mindset or realizing that you are in control of the mindset that you walk around with. A lot of people don't like that. People often take that as, so you're saying everything that's happened to me is my fault. And it's like, yep, yes. Yes, that is literally what I'm saying. Now, I don't like the word fault because that implies blame.
The way I like to think about that is like fault versus responsibility.
Yeah.
Like it may not be your fault, that someone punched you in the face, but if you're going to live the rest of your life based on the fact that someone punched you in the face, like that is your responsibility, how you're going to react to that. Are you going to be a person that got punched in the face for the rest of your life? Or are you going to be a person that got punched and like bounced and got up? Responsibility. Everything's your responsibility.
Another way of saying that, or a word that really clicks well with me, is power. You have the power to choose how you react to things. And that doesn't mean you'll be good at it at the start. Learning to be optimistic and learning to be positive and learning to be, really, we're talking about stoicism. Learning how to be more stoic, that takes fucking practice. I've been doing this shit for like going on 15 years at this point. Like ever since I was depressed, so maybe not that long, 10 years. And so it can take some practice, but that was something that you just absolutely took hold of, that idea that I get to choose the story that I write. And for some examples, when some things happened in your life that threw your life upside down a little bit, you made a very conscious effort to choose the story that you went with. You could see both pathways. You could say, why is this happening to me? I'm a victim. Like, why do I feel like this? I don't want to feel like this. This sucks. The other person's doing this to me. But you chose to go the other way and say, no, how can I find opportunities here? How can I find a way to make this better? How can I solve this problem? How can I find a way to level up and become a better human being going through this challenge? So that mindset shift was so critical, I think, for why you made so many leaps and bounds during the coaching program, was because you fully embraced that sort of responsible mindset of like, I'm an adult. Everything that happens to me is my fucking responsibility. My reaction to it is my fucking responsibility. Because we're talking about honesty here. How did you open up to your girlfriend about some of the things that you wanted? And what leaps forward did you make in terms of openness and honesty in the context of a relationship?
At the start, I had this idea in my head who I needed to be in a relationship was like this narrow path of what society says a guy should be in a relationship.
As in like monogamy?
Yeah, that's one thing. Giving myself permission to have conversations about what I wanted and like just kind of being true to myself in the relationship. Even just like having something that you're afraid of and opening up about it was a big deal for me.
I think more than anything, if I can sum up all of your coaching with one word, it would be this word, permission. You had in your head, and maybe it was just in your subconscious with some of these things, a list of things you wanted from life. You weren't 100% happy at your job. I think a part of you wanted to be financially free and to have your own thing, whether that's a product or a service or something. Yeah. You wanted your own thing there.
Definitely.
I think you looked at other people's sex lives and compared yourself to theirs, and you felt like you had missed out on your sex life in your 20s. You had all of these like hopes and dreams and desires. My feeling that I got from you, the vibe I got from you, was a man that was lost. I definitely got a vibe of this guy's lost and he's just kind of out there floating. He's like a leaf on the wind, and that wind is going to take him wherever the wind wants to. And he actually wants to go in a different direction. He doesn't know how to make that happen. And I think more than anything, what I and Cam and the other guys in the group really instilled upon you was permission for you to just put your hand up and say, I want an amazing sex life. I want to move. I'm not happy in this town. I'm not happy at this job. I want more from life, and I know I'm capable of more. And I know that it's right there, and I just need to fucking try. And this mirrors so many of my other coaching clients as well. Once you gave yourself permission, it wasn't that difficult for you to do all of this stuff. As soon as you give yourself permission, you can then start making it happen. I think once you gave yourself that permission, the world really did start to open up for you. So how has that process been? What's that felt like? Has it been like unplugging from the matrix? Like, holy fuck, I'm allowed all this stuff.
Yeah, I think in wanting that stuff, I already knew I was unplugged from the matrix. But as you mentioned, like I didn't give myself the permission. I didn't have the autonomy or like the ability to change my situation. I mean, I did, but like I didn't do it. In the coaching, a lot of what changed was okay, I realized like I wasn't really taking authority over my life. And
Beautiful word. Yeah.
I was in this path that was like very comfortable and easy for me. I'd gotten some of what I wanted in life. And so I felt like pretty chill with it. And it was like, I looked around at other people and it was like better than what, a lot of other people had. So I was like, okay, like this is pretty good. I should be happy with this. I had a really great relationship already, probably like better than maybe anyone my age that I know. So I was like, okay, like, yeah, I could be really happy with that. And my job, like I had an awesome schedule, like I had good money, like, okay, like, yeah, I should be pretty happy with that. Like I'd done cool stuff in my life, so I should be happy with that. But like on each one of those things, there was a lot more that I wanted. I wanted to like keep moving forward and keep building, and being comfortable wasn't moving me forward. So a lot of what we worked on is that, like with my job, okay, like I was comfortable in it and it was easy, but really had it deep inside of me that I wanted to do my own thing. I had known for years that I wanted that, and being comfortable in that job wasn't helping me get there. So what did help me get there was just going all in on changing my situation, moving, negotiating with my supervisor to get a schedule that allowed me the time to do the things I wanted to do. And part of that was like not caring whether I kept the job or not. It was like, all right, I'm doing this. The rest of the world can rearrange itself over there, but this is where I'm going. And I think that was the biggest shift, is like that train metaphor, like, all right, I'm this train on these rails, like the rest of the world can go by or interact with the train or whatever, but the train is going, it's leaving the station. That was how it was for me with moving. I'd known that I wanted to move and tried to move a bunch of times. What was different this time was like, it didn't really matter what came up or what was happening. Like, and I think you helped me with that a lot by just saying like, do you just want a deadline for moving? And I was like, oh yeah, okay, I do want that. With the relationship, yeah, it was a really, really great relationship. There was just like certain aspects of it that I wanted to be better. And some of those things like I did get to work on while I was in coaching in this relationship. Like I got way more honest in it, and
you flexed your honesty muscle for sure.
Yeah, a lot. Other things that I wanted to explore, threesomes. So I got very honest with that. Before that, I just really hadn't been open about my desire for that. So it wasn't even like, that's ground zero of that, is like just opening up that that's something you want and being honest about your desires. Then you can go from there. So that was a huge, just starting point. There were like lots of other conversations like that. Just having the conversations allowed all the rest to happen. And that's just honesty.
Honesty with yourself. I think that's one thing I think we do pretty well in the coaching program, if I can say so myself, is just listening to people and saying, what do you actually want? And it doesn't matter what you think I want you to say. Definitely doesn't matter what you think society wants you to say. It's like, what do you actually want? I think in order for us to fit in as social creatures, we put a lot of our desires and needs into a little box and we wrap it up and then we hide it in the attic and we say, I can't have that, because if I have that, then I'd lose all my friends, or I'd lose respect in the community, or my boss wouldn't look at me the same way, or people would hate me.
Society says that's not okay.
Yeah. And it's like, you can go down that pathway of following society's blueprint if you want to, but then you will get the average life. And if you want the average life, brilliant, good. Go for it. But if you don't want the average life, and if we want to define average life, that means like married with 2.3 kids with a white picket fence, and you earn roughly like $100,000 a year or something, like between the two of you, and you have a 60% chance of getting divorced, and you both become obese, and you both stop traveling around the world because you get old and tired, and you slowly die and you get cancer, and your doctor says like, bad luck, it's just part of getting old. And you just take that on the chin and go, okay, I guess that's what the doctor told me. And you do everything everyone tells you to do. If that's what you want, fucking have at it. And it's not even me criticizing that. It's like, if that genuinely is what you want, fucking go for it. But then you wouldn't be listening to this podcast. And I think most of the people listening don't want that. But they also don't want the criticism that can come with going your own path. One thing that at least I've found in my life is the criticism is never as bad as the self-criticism. What I mean by that is anything that anybody else might say about my decisions is never going to hurt me as much as my own regret would if I didn't chase those dreams. And so I think a big part of my coaching is just listening to people. They tell me what they want, And I say, that sounds beautiful. How do we make that happen? Let's do that. Come on, let's get started. I think it's just having someone in your corner that gives a shit about you and will listen to your goals. I think for some guys that come to me for coaching, when they first open up about their goals, I'm the first person they've told about some of their goals. They've even admitted them to themselves sometimes.
No, that's accurate. Yeah, through this process, as you get more honest with the world, with other people, you get more honest with yourself. And
yes.
Sometimes it can take you a really long time to figure out a deeper want that you have. And as you get more honest with yourself and build that muscle, as you said, it can become more where it's just like, yes, no, yes, no.
Yeah, it's almost like you have to learn how to listen to yourself. Mm-hmm. And for a lot of people, when I do podcasts saying like, what do you actually want? Tell me what you want and I'll make that happen. Even some of my coaching clients, when I say, what do you want? The answer comes back, I don't know. Mm-hmm. You don't even know how to ask yourself what you want. And so that's a skill that you can learn that needs to be practiced is like, how do I even ask myself what I want? And how do I even know what the answer is? Because the answer often comes back, I don't know. I've banned the word I don't know from my relationship with Imogen. She was the queen of saying, I don't know. And we literally banned it at some point. I was like, you're never allowed to say, I don't know anymore. You can say, I need some time to think about it. You can say, let me brainstorm. You can say, can you please help me find out the answer? You can say, I might need to Google that. You can say, let me go ask my friends. But you can't say, I don't know. Because I don't know is a way of saying, I quit. It's letting yourself off the hook. And I think a lot of people get stuck in that learned helplessness of, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. And it's like, have you even just stopped saying, I don't know, to actually listen to the answer that comes up? You got to peel that layer of the onion back.
Yeah, probably a better way to go about that would be, I need some time to think about that. And that's how you build the muscle. You don't quit and say, I don't know. You say, let me think about that and take some time to do it. Because it really is a muscle to build. And I wouldn't blame anyone for not immediately knowing everything they want.
No, of course.
As we grow up, there's a lot of like noise in that signal as we come up. We're just inundated with, what's on the TV, what beliefs your parents had, what beliefs your friends had. But I think it was Ravi who told me this. I don't know if this is his thing or not, but he said like desires are sacred. That resonated for me because it really is true. Like a lot of what we're doing is we want to move forward in life and not look back and regret things. We don't want to be, at least for me, like a really huge thing to me is at the end of my life, I don't want to have major regrets. By the time I leave this life, I want to have done the things that are really important to me. And that's why desires are sacred. It's almost like you are your desires. Like if you're not pursuing them, you're not really living a life that's true to you.
To underline your point even further, I think Ravi's onto something beautiful when he says, and for anyone listening, Ravi is one of the guys in the coaching program. I think he's onto something beautiful when he says desires are sacred. If you think about desires, where desires come from, they're a product of your upbringing. They're a product of other people. They're a product of all of the variables that are just going on around us constantly in the universe. They usually don't come from you. It's not like you sit there and say, I want to really desire playing tennis. I want to just really, really, really start desiring having a threesome. No, like you don't sit there and invent the genesis of a desire. It just kind of happens as a product of like things you're introduced to and things that are going on around you. So if you don't go after your desires and what your heart really desires, if you don't pursue those things, you're kind of spitting in the face of your entire upbringing. You're spitting in the face of all the people around you that have influenced you. You're spitting in the face of this amazing cosmological miracle that we're all living in. You're saying, fuck all of that. Think of all the untold infinite number of fucking variables that have come together and coalesced to make this moment right now, to make you this fucking current human being with these wants and desires. You're saying all of that shit, that everything that's happened since the Big Bang or whatever invented theory story that we invent, all of the shit that's happened since then, which led to this moment and me having these desires in this moment, fuck all that, I know better. Fuck all that, I shouldn't pursue that. I want to have, amazing sex, or I want to start a business, or I want to change the world. Fuck all of that. No. Everything that's happened up to this point was a mistake, and I should just do what society wants. It's like you are spitting in the face of so much more than just your own desires. You are spitting in the face of the last 13 billion fucking years that led to this moment. So that's why I will fight to defend someone's wants and needs and desires. I will always stick up for the little guy. I will step in if somebody's being bullied about their desires and their wants and their needs and all of that, because there's so much more at stake here, or there is so much more that has led to this moment rather than just, oh, I want to have sex. It's like, it's so much fucking deeper than that. It absolutely is.
I would even like build on that and say someone could take what you just said and kind of flip it in a bad way and say like, you know, each time you don't pursue your deeper desire, then it's like, oh, well, I fucked up. I just wasted all the infinite probabilities and fucking all the beautiful cosmos that came together to create this instant. And I just fucking used it to get hammered and pass out. Like, I think the really cool thing is like all the times that you may not have fully pursued those desires, that builds up in a little battery bank, a little energy bank, and you get that later. Like it just makes you want that much more. You know, if that's like creating your own business, like all the times that you fuck around or whatever, you don't get it done. If that's like a true desire for you, it doesn't go away. So it just kind of like builds up in this little energy bank. And, you know, if that builds up for like a few years, it's going to come out and you're going to go that much harder. So if anyone's listening, you know, you can think about it that way. Like it just means like if you didn't pursue it for a little while, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like that can be a good thing. That can mean you'll go that much harder when you do decide to go all in and pursue it.
Yeah. I think don't sit there and beat yourself up if you're drinking whiskey one day or you jerk off to porn or something. It's not about being perfect in every moment, not at all. But it's we're talking on a deeper level if you don't chase your dreams for the next 80 years, rather than if you just have one day where you don't chase your dreams. Let's step back a bit at something that you talked about, you know, maybe 10 minutes ago. You had this wonderful relationship, you know, had this awesome job, you had friends, you're attractive, you're not overweight, you have abs, like you're in a pretty good position in life. And you felt somewhat like you were complacent because you're like, I have enough. I call this first world problem guilt, where it's almost like my life is good enough. And there are so many people on earth who would murder to have my fucking life. But I know that there's more that I can do.
Not even like just those things, but my mindset was already like, we talked about how it like wasn't great, but it was like pretty good. Like I'd read a lot of like self-help books and I had these ideas in my head, you know, like this idea that everything is a story. I kind of already knew that, or like you don't get to control situations, but you get to control your reaction to them, which is essentially like stoicism.
Yep.
And like positivity, like every time you have a negative thought, just have a positive one. Like I had a lot of these things going for me. So it wasn't just like those outward appearance things. Like I had a pretty decent mindset, and I could tell like looking around at, you know, my peers and my friends and stuff that like my mindset was, you know, pretty good. I'm a pretty like positive person already. Like I was already at like a pretty okay spot. But yeah, it was like, why am I not deep down like happy about this, you know?
Was there guilt there?
Oh yeah, especially about the business thing. Just feeling like that's something I've just known from a very young age that I wanted and that I haven't accomplished it yet. And, you know, it's been 10 years or whatever. Yeah, there's a lot of guilt there.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of guys and girls out there as well that would listen to this and go, you know what, man, holy crap, I can relate to Taylor. My life is like good. Like I have nothing to complain about. Maybe there's a little problem here or something here that I want to fix, or maybe I could lose a bit of weight. But for the most part, my life is fucking good. And I'm almost in this cursed position where I'm complacent because I have enough. Like, it's not like I look around in my life, at least if your life, okay, to use another example, I've heard this said a lot with like domestic violence situations. I had this myself. This is why I stayed in my second relationship for so long, where there's a domestic violence relationship, but it only happens once every like 3 months or so, and only under extreme stressful circumstances. And for the rest of the time, the person is incredibly loving and gentle and wonderful and kind to you. And so you start to gaslight yourself. And this is what I did to myself. I was like, well, she only gets violent once every 3 months or so. And it really was like once every 3 months. It was almost like fucking clockwork. And the rest of the time, she's the most loving, kind human being ever. And the sex is good, and she's attractive, and we like each other, and all of that shit. So maybe I should just put up with it. Maybe I should just stay. I see a lot of people doing that in their life, where it's like they have a good job, they have friends, their body looks okay, They seem to get some interest from the opposite sex. Maybe they're even in a decent relationship. There's nothing wrong with the relationship. But they look at, and try not to compare yourself to other people, but maybe they look at other people and they say, fuck, I could do that. Like, they're not any more special than me. I could do that. Or, man, I know I'm capable of changing the world in a bigger way. I'm not living up to my potential. I could be impacting my own life and other people's lives way more than I am. But they're just stuck in this complacency. So what would you say to someone who's listening and they're like, holy shit, Taylor, exactly where you were, that's where I am. I'm stuck. I'm complacent.
I would say get some coaching. Like, talk to another human. It doesn't have to be Andy. There's probably someone out there you don't even have to pay. Like, I worked with a spiritual guide right before Andy that really changed my life. And he was like, you can give me money if you want, but like, you don't have to. There's people like that out there, like, just like, it comes down to your, don't quit, do something. Just keep pursuing it. And yeah, I think coaching really was the best way to move through that. Who's that tennis player that hired a bunch of coaches?
Novak Djokovic. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say just emulate him as much as you can. Just get a bunch of people on your team. I think you said it in a podcast earlier, pay to win.
Yep.
I like that phrase because you hear like a lot when I was younger, this like thing repeated a lot that like, you just need to find a mentor, like that's kind of one of the big things you have to do to succeed in life is just find a mentor. And it's like, well, how do you find this like mentor? Like, if you find someone that
just fucking pay them.
That's what I didn't, like, no one told me that part. I didn't know that. And obviously that's like, there's other ways, but that's the shortcut, is like, just pay them. It sounds funny, but like, the person you want to mentor you and that you really respect, they're probably busy and their time's probably valuable. Like, you have to give them a reason to want to give you some value, And one of the shortcuts to that is like, just pay them. So like, if you have the resources, or if you just don't have the resources, but you almost do, like, yeah, pay to win. It's simple. Invest in yourself. It really is like the best investment you could make. And
yeah, if you think of it like it's a stock, you are the best thing that you can invest in, because you don't pay tax on that. It's going to be with you for life. Like, any insights that you make will stay with you for life. It compounds. You getting coaching means that you can then go and have the confidence and the permission to charge 5 times, 10 times, 100 times what you are currently charging at your business, or to quit your job and go somewhere more lucrative. Like, it literally pays for itself. You get someone who's ahead of you who you can then essentially just have complete blind faith in. And that's a big part of having a mentor or a coach, is this person has done what I'm trying to do. If they did it, fuck it. I'm going to surrender all control over to them. And that requires humility, but I'm going to surrender all control over to them and just do what they tell me to do. Even if I have limiting beliefs and my brain says that won't work, but I'm short, will that work for me? Or, but here's my circumstances. Are you sure your plan will work for me? If I just put all that aside and say, I'm going to just fucking shut up and do what they say, you start seeing results, you start seeing dividends, and then you really can go all in and trust. So I think more than anything, it's having someone you can trust.
It can be like hard to find someone that you trust enough, to have that blind faith with, that's like a pretty individual thing. You having all your content out there is just like the perfect opportunity for people to see, like, does this person align with my values? Is it someone I want to have blind faith with? I wouldn't say go have that with anyone. Before I engaged with you, I'd been listening to your content for, I don't know, like a year or something. Yeah, I would listen to it almost every day. And then, when I started really seriously thinking about paying you to coach me, I went on this funny little like research rabbit hole where I was like, all right, I have to check every life coach that exists on the internet, see like which one has the best value and which one's the best. Like, I was buying a digital camera or something, It's like, what am I doing? Like, this is the dude that I've already like listened to hours of his podcast every day. Like, of course I wanted to talk to this guy. Yeah,
that's how I find my coaches. I watch all of their content, and if they've genuinely helped me, or I'll phrase that a different way, I only pay the people who've genuinely helped me. Like with their free content. Right. If they have poured their heart and soul into it, then fuck it. Well, the paid thing's probably going to be 100 times better, 1,000 times better, because now they're invested in me.
Which is like the customer experience side of what you tell people for your business advice, which is just give a ton of value for free.
Yeah. You enter into this beautiful exchange there where someone has given you quite a bit of money to pay your bills. And so there's a hell of a lot of gratitude that comes from you, from me, the coach, to the client. And from their point of view, they're like, well, this guy's going to help me change my life. And so you have this beautiful symbiotic relationship. But it's funny, I get a lot of emails and I get a lot of comments and stuff from people that will write you this long thing and they'll say, hey, can you please here's all my things. Can you please change my life in a free fucking YouTube comment or a free email? And I have spent the last 5 years helping people for free, an insane amount of times. You can't imagine how many thousands of emails I've written, 20 paragraphs, because I know better than anyone else. I can't Imogen says to me all the time, Andy, you can't help yourself. Even if you smack your hand on the table and say, I'm going to stop giving away stuff for free unless they pay for it. It's you won't. No, you're always going to give it away for free. And so I've done that so many fucking times, but no matter how hard I try and care about someone when I'm helping them for free, I can't. I can't care about them as much as if they're paying me $7,000. That's just a fucking thing in your brain where it's this person is serious. This person is extending an olive branch to me and giving me a chunk of money in exchange for me caring about them. That's what you're essentially buying. I think a lot of people think you're buying time with a coach. No, you're buying the coach caring about you. You're buying the coach investing in you. You're buying someone that actually gives a fuck about you and what you might have to say and your wants and your needs and your desires, and someone that will be your cheerleader. So it's so much more than just time. It really is.
Yeah. And I'll flip that around and say it's a two-way street there. It works the other way too. A big reason why I tried so hard and cared so much about coaching was because I paid a lot of money for it. It basically was all the money I had in the world at the time, for coaching. Me going all in financially meant that I went all in, in every aspect. I took it really seriously. I feel like paying really helped me go hard and really try, because it's okay, I have this set amount of time that I get to work with this person. Let me get as much out of it as I can, And I wouldn't even think of not making a meeting with you or something. If anyone's in that complacent part of life, what would I say? I would be pay a coach. I do pay. And I've tried that with other coaches now. It's been great every time.
I have never had a bad coaching experience, as in where I've paid a coach. I've never regretted it once in my entire life. And I've paid big money for some coaches.
Yeah. Yeah. So do the Djokovic, pay a bunch of coaches.
Yeah. It's so fucking simple, isn't it?
It really is.
I call it delegating your motivation. I'm not a motivated person. I'm not. I'm not a hardworking person. I'm really not. So I pay other people to make me that way. I pay my coach to literally just harass me. My coach, my bodybuilding coach, harasses me. And it's that's awesome. That's awesome. I will now stay on track because I'm paying this guy. Yeah, if you just pay people to keep you motivated, to keep you on track, they will harass you. That's their job. They will love you. They will support you. They'll do all of that. And then you don't have to use your limited willpower. You don't have to use your limited time and energy and motivation. Willpower and motivation are a finite resource. If you outsource that, you're paying someone else to give a shit about you. You're paying someone else to do the thing you don't want to do. That's why I say it's pay to win. It fucking is.
Before we segue, I couldn't stress that more. If someone gets one thing out of this, do that, pay to win, just pay for a mentor. That is a great idea. There's nothing shallow or silly about that. It's really the best investment you could make. And it has unlimited upside, it has unlimited interest. If you invest that money in a stock, it has a, 15% return monetarily. If you invest in yourself, it has unlimited return, not just monetarily, but in all areas of your life. Yeah, it's huge.
Absolutely. Tell us about your experience moving to a new city and how the coaching program helped you make that decision more quickly and confidently.
I listed it as one of my really big goals. I wanted to get out of coaching from the very first call. You laser focused in on that and saw that as really low hanging fruit, something we could get done really easily. And in my mind, it was this thing that would take at least a year. I remember thinking that it would, probably take a year to get all my stuff packed and transition and find a new job. And you were do you want to just do that in 2 weeks? I was oh, fuck. Yeah, I do. So you just set a deadline for me, and that pushed me to do a lot of other things, negotiate with my boss and look at other jobs. And a lot of good things came from that. it's like one of those things where just having a deadline, it'll take as much time as you have to do it. So
there's a beautiful analogy there that a goldfish will grow to the size of its tank, or a fish will grow to the size of its tank. And so if you set a deadline and say, I'm going to take 1 year to move, it's like, you'll take 1 year to move. We all procrastinate our homework and avoid it until like 1 or 2 weeks before it's due. But if you say, I'm going to move into this new city in 2 weeks from now, you will fucking make that happen. And you weren't the only person in the group that we did this with. There was another guy in the group who also moved in pretty short amount of time too. I think for him it was like 5 weeks or something. And he said that was going to take him a year. And that's a big part of the coaching program. Is someone will come to me and say, I have this goal. My plan or my deadline is to do it by next year, or to do it 2 years from now. And I'm like, fuck that. Do it in 2 weeks. Probably the most famous example of this is Ravi, who came to the coaching program and said, all right, I'm going to lose my virginity in a year from now. And I was like, a year? Lose it in 2 weeks. And then less than 2 weeks later, he's like, okay, I've done it. Holy shit, I did it. So it's these limiting beliefs that we have, or I think if you're just, success is exponential. That's how I'd phrase it. And the longer you're into self-improvement, the more it starts to snowball, and you just get more done in a smaller amount of time. If you're at the start of your self-improvement journey, or maybe you're only a couple of years into it, you just have such a different fucking timeline, or a different openness to what might be possible. You think stuff is going to take a year, but if you're someone, like myself, or someone who's further along, you look at each one of those things and you say, that should only take you 2 weeks. No, you could do that in 1 day if you really wanted to. Like 10 pieces of content, bro, you could record that in the next 4 hours. Like, why would that take you a month? You could do that in the next 4 fucking hours. And so you just have a more realistic idea of what is actually possible. And you're giving that permission to the client and saying, hey, you could be going and talking to 10 girls a day if you really wanted to. You could fucking talk to 100. If you actually wanted to, you could talk to 100. And the client's mind explodes and they go, holy shit, I could do what? And it's like, yeah, of course you can. So
yeah, just talking to someone who's either a step ahead of you or who just gives you that third party objective perspective is also like willing to call you on things. If something's like a bullshit, like they'll call you on it.
Gently.
Yeah, it is like gently. It's more effective when it's gentle. A lot of times.
It's more effective when it's questioning. And so if anyone out there wants to be a coach, and you actually started coaching others, and we'll segue into this, if anyone out there wants to be a coach, or even just to give advice to other people, you're trying to help your friends or something, don't call them out in a way that's combative. What I mean by that is, don't say, no, bro, that's wrong. No, don't do that. No, that's stupid. No, man, why are you doing this? Don't phrase it like that. Phrase it in a question. Get them, it's almost like Inception, plant the idea in their mind and let them play around with it. So what that might look like is, are you really sure it's going to take you a year to move? And then they sit there and they go, oh, 2 weeks. Could I do it in 2 weeks? Oh, maybe. And they dance around with the idea and they figure out how to make it happen. But if you just come in hot and you're just hard and you're like, that's stupid, dude. Why don't you move in 2 weeks, you pussy? The discussion shuts down. The person gets emotional. They close off. They don't listen. They're not thinking of solutions. They're now thinking of defenses because they feel like they have to defend against you because you came in fucking swinging. So there is an art to helping other people. How have you practiced coaching other people? Because that's something that's been very important to you. You want to coach and mentor other people.
I do want that. And a big reason I wanted that was just to be able to like do that for friends and family members that were already in my life, people I cared a lot about, and you see them like going through the struggles of life, and you just want to be able to like be a sounding board and be able to like talk through things with them. That is a skill though, I think, because like you can't just come to like any friend in your life and get help with like deep things, like it's a skill that a person builds, and it's like a really cool ability to have. Yeah, for me, a lot of it was just like seeing the way that you, Andy, like approached me on the calls, emulating that a little bit. A lot of it was just like being more honest and open with other people, and that breeds honesty and openness from them, of course. Yeah, I was able to build that a lot with family member and with friends. Like we were just talking about deeper stuff than we'd ever talked about before, and opening up more, and like, oh wow, look, a lot of the things you're facing in life are the same as the things I'm facing in life. Like, why are we both going it alone in these silos? Like, let's collaborate and like put the things we're learning together. Like, why not? The only thing that's stopping you from doing that is like just opening up and being honest, which feels a little scary at first, but like totally worth it.
And that has to come from you.
Yeah, you'll be the one initiating all of that.
This absolutely applies to relationships. It's something that Byron Katie, her books have helped me a lot on this. In a relationship, we can often get frustrated that the other person isn't doing the thing that we do, or we can get frustrated that maybe they're not trying as hard as us, or maybe every time we have a disagreement, you're the one that fixes it and they don't, or you might seem to care about something in the relationship more than they do. And basically there's a discrepancy there. And you can get very frustrated and go, well, how come she doesn't initiate sex as much as me? Or how come every time we have a disagreement, I'm the one that fixes it? Or how come every time she's unhappy, I'm the one that cuddles her, but then if I'm unhappy, she doesn't cuddle me? And we can get very frustrated with that difference or that gap between expectation and reality. Like we expect them to do something and reality is they're not. What's really helped me is a Byron Katie quote: it only takes one clear person to have a good relationship. In other words, if she's grumpy and she's being, emotional or whatever, I don't have to do that. I can be the calm, stoic, clear person in the relationship. If I want this disagreement to be resolved, I'm not going to sit there on the couch fuming, waiting for her to make the move and say sorry. No, I'm going to fucking open up about the things I could have done better and say, hey, like going forward, I think I could have done this better. I think maybe the reason we argued today was because I'll be honest. Yeah, I was kind of blunt with you. I think I could have been a little more chill about that. Maybe I'll practice that. How am I going to practice that? All right, here's what I'm going to do. If you go first and initiate that shit, Byron Katie calls that picking up the socks. If you're frustrated that your children leave the socks on the ground, you pick up the fucking socks. You're the parent that wants the socks picked up. The kids don't give a fuck about the socks being picked up. You have the problem. You fix it. It's not their fucking problem. For the most part, with these smaller things, especially in a relationship, it's up to us to go first. The same thing with dating. It's like, don't just sit there and wait for a woman to reply to you after you having had sex, telling you I had fun. Don't sit there waiting for hours going like, I hope she texts me to say that she had fun. You fucking text her immediately afterwards and say, I had fun. Sitting there waiting for them to go first means that you don't have any power. You don't have any, I don't like the word, but control. You don't have any agency. You're sitting there just hoping the other person will give you what they want. It's like, why don't you just go first? If you want this thing, give it to yourself. If you want them to reply and say they had fun with you, you text them first and say, I had fun. And then there's a very good chance they reply and say, me too. Or they tell you that they didn't. Now you're not sitting there wondering what they might think. You have your answer, which is closure, which is beautiful. Can you share the progress that you've made on your business during the coaching program, specifically the working prototype that you made in 2 weeks?
A lot of it for me was like just feeling like I didn't have the habits or the structure. Like I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't have the discipline or the habits to work on it. And what we worked on was like giving yourself permission to suck, like lowering the bar, lowering the activation energy. Like instead of expecting yourself to have like this perfect work week, like just do a half hour on your business every day. And that was really what it took. First thing in the morning, just setting a timer for a half hour. Like you can get really far on a lot of things, just dedicating a half hour to them every day. And it's not very much time.
That's how I wrote most of the Tinder guide. Yeah. It was just in 15-minute, 20-minute blocks.
Anyway, I just I already had things in my head that I wanted to build and knew how they worked and knew the path. It was just like doing that half hour every day. So I got this thing that I've had in my head for like years, had an idea of how to build it. I just needed to flesh it out. So it only took me like 2 weeks of half hour every day showing up, and like this thing that only existed in my head is now like working in front of me. Like a lot of things, like I just built it up to be something bigger than it was. And if you just give yourself permission to suck.
We have in our head some idealized version of maybe like in your case, a product that you wanted to build and sell. And we put this pressure on ourselves because we have this expectation of how it's going to be when it's perfect. 5 years from now, how will I be as a YouTube content creator? Or, if I make this product, will I be able to sell 1 million of them? We put this insane pressure on ourselves. And then we forget that there's a journey to get there. It's like if we looked at Mount Everest and said, how do I jump from here up there? And it's like, you can't jump that high. What are you talking about? And you're like, no. Like, I should be able to jump up there. How do I jump up there? Why can't I jump that high? And it's like, You have to
Right.
walk up the fucking mountain, retard. It might take you, and you might not even get it the first climb. If you've never been mountaineering before, you're not going to climb Mount Everest the first time. You're probably going to take 10 years of training to even be able to begin starting on that expedition. The same thing with building a working product or having a YouTube channel or any of that. Do what's known as an MVP, minimum viable product. In other words, do the shittiest version that at least just fucking works.
Right.
And it's like a prototype. If you can fucking do that, like record a video on your webcam, record a video on your fucking phone, hold your phone up and just do a vlog. If you can do that, now you have a minimum viable product, you have a working prototype, and then you can iterate on that and improve that.
For you, 5 years ago or whenever it was that you started doing content, for you to, however many years ago, say like, all right, how can I create this thing that will sign up like $50,000 coaching clients? That's just like a totally backwards way to look at anything.
I never would have started.
Yeah.
I never would have started. To really drill this point in, the very first article that I ever wrote, I'll show it on the screen. This is the first article I ever wrote. Give yourself permission to suck. Because I was procrastinating, I told myself my website had to be perfect. I told myself I had to change a whole bunch of lives. I had put all this pressure on myself to do a good job with my website, and I procrastinated for weeks. And then one day I got really frustrated with myself, and I said, right, I have 1 hour to write an article and publish it. Look, there's the time that I started, 9:37, and I think I did it in like 40 minutes. There you go, 10:13. So I did that in like whatever that is, 20 minutes. Was it great? No. Was it perfect? Fuck no. But it was the first article, and then I've written something like 400, 500 at this point. So starting with just something. And I really loved that you embraced that and you just made this fucking prototype in 2 weeks. And you sold some. People fucking paid you money for it. People were like, this is good. I'll pay you for this.
Something I saw other people in the group doing was they would send someone accountability money. Like the basic idea is like just get a amount of money that's like hurtful for you to lose it and send that to someone and tell them, I'll have this thing done by this time. Otherwise, like keep the money. And that was how I shot my first YouTube video, something I really didn't want to do. Yeah, I sent money to my girlfriend and said, like, don't give me the money back if I don't have it done by this day. That was how I built a website for my product in one day. That can be a really good way to just speed run that.
So what was it like shooting that first YouTube video, and how did the coaching program help you find your voice?
In the very beginning of coaching, I was like scared to even post in the group. I wrote on the first post that I was getting physically nauseous from like making my first post in the group. The whole thing was a process of just getting better at sharing, and making a YouTube video was like a manifestation of that. It was still really scary. Like I recorded it like several times, didn't like the way I sounded, re-recorded it. In the end, it felt really good. It really did. And it's just like another thing that you can build up in your mind. And once you do it, it's not that big a deal.
Let's segue. How did you manage to negotiate a cushy part-time work schedule? And what impact has that had on your life and your goals?
The way I managed to negotiate was by really not giving a fuck whether I kept my job or not. In a negotiation, you have a lot of power if you're just willing to walk away from it. The other person can sense that. I researched like what my other options were, and that's kind of like me developing my abundance mindset when it comes to money. It's like, well, if I don't have this job, what am I going to do? Like, let me look. So I updated my resume. I had other job offers already. I had other like ideas of what I could do when it came to money. So I wasn't holding so tightly to this job. That when I started negotiating with my boss, I was very respectful, really expressed my appreciation for the job, but like I held firm that this is what I wanted, which was like 30 hours a week max. If that didn't work for both of us, then I was fine to bounce. And none of that is possible if I didn't have that abundance mindset, that ability to walk away. And the ability to walk away, it didn't, like, to be clear, it didn't come from like having a ton of savings. It just came from having plan Bs, knowing that there's other options out there.
Yeah. And this has been something that quite a few guys in the coaching program are going through or have already gone through, either quitting their job and going somewhere else, or negotiating more part-time work with their boss, or getting a promotion, or any of that kind of stuff. And we sit there in these fucking paradigms or these limiting beliefs where we say, my boss would never go for that. Nobody else in my industry works part-time, so I couldn't. You've never fucking asked. You just put yourself in this box of I can't or it won't work, but you haven't actually checked. People do the same thing with women and dating. They go, women would never like me because I'm Asian or I'm short.
If you want to have
you haven't asked 1,000.
Yeah, if you want to have a threesome, like, did you ask anyone like to have a threesome? Like, how many people? Like, did you check? You know, it's the same thing.
I have an incredibly fancy threesome guide, which is a paid video course, paid guide. I put tons of effort into it. So did Imogen. There's so many things in it, but it all is summarized by this. If you want to have a threesome, ask for it. That's it. There you go. I just saved you $250 and 6 hours of your time. Ask for a threesome. That's it. If you want a job promotion, ask for it. If they say no, go elsewhere. That's it. If you want to have sex, ask a lot of women. If they all say no, go ask more. Eventually one will say yes. If they don't, improve yourself until one does. Like anything you want in life, it's just a matter of asking enough people until someone says yes to you. And it's not that difficult. Maybe talk us through the process of you figuring out that threesomes was something that you desired, or just having a more abundant sex life was something that you desired.
I had like a pretty decent sex life already, like within relationships. So it was kind of a bit of that like complacency thing we talked about before, where I'm like, I'm already at like a pretty comfortable level. Like we have a good sex life in this relationship. Yeah, it just felt like there was other things I wanted to explore. Yeah, I just knew like at the end of the day, that was like a deeper desire for me. If the person you're with like doesn't want to explore that, like there's a ton of other people out there that do. Like it's just a matter of finding someone that your desires overlap with.
You went out one night recently, actually, to a club completely by yourself. I believe you hit on more women than you've ever hit on in your entire life, but you did that in one night.
Yeah.
How was that? How did that happen? How the hell did you give yourself the confidence, or how did you get the confidence to do that?
You know, my number one goal in coaching was like business, but we kept working on mindset stuff. And I think this is wise because like mindset stuff levels up everything else in your life.
Everything comes down to a mindset or a belief or a story that you're telling. So anyone out there listening who thinks, oh, I don't have the sex life I want, or the business life, or the friendship, it's because you have beliefs in your head. You either believe it's impossible, you believe it's not doable. So mindset stuff is like absolutely critical.
Yeah. So like these better mindsets were already in place. I had a lot less fear than I did when I started coaching. Like I knew that my desires were sacred. We talked through the deeper reasons why I wanted these things. Like I didn't just want to hit on women. Like I wanted to be more confident in myself. I wanted to have better social skills. Like I wanted to be okay with like presenting myself in a sexual context. So yeah, like I already like just going into that situation. Yeah, I just had all this foundation work already done. I was essentially a different person. And yeah, so it wasn't hard to like do totally different things than I'd done before and like get totally different results. Just going up to people and talking to them and knowing that like nothing bad is going to happen. You know, if you go hit on a bunch of girls, I've just seen so many repetitions of other guys in the group doing the same thing and like leveling themselves up, nothing bad happening. Even the girls that reject you, like they're just super nice, like 99% of the time. And that like played out for me, you know. Some people were receptive to it, some people weren't, but the ones that weren't were like really, really nice. That was like a big deal for me. It was like genuinely like a big leap in confidence. And I think also like doing it without alcohol, that was like a big deal for me.
Can you share any insights or advice for someone who's considering joining the coaching program based on your own experiences and transformation?
I would say just do it. Like if you have some plan in your head of wanting to do this like a year from now or sometime in the future, like just do it now. Like seriously, just take the shortcut and pay to win. Like just do it. It is an investment in yourself, and that's the best investment. I just can't think of anything better that you could do with that energy and with that money. Just invest in as much coaching as you can, honestly. And I had a lot of these ideas too about like, okay, I'll just like do it in a few months when I have more time to focus on it. There's a lot of that going on. Or like I have a, 1 week vacation planned in the middle of it. So I won't be able to like take full advantage of it that week. Like just whatever, just do it.
Those are the most common emails that I get from people who will email me out of the blue saying, hey, I'd love to sign up for coaching, but now's not the right time because I'm going away for 2 weeks, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
or,
I sent one of those.
I've got this, my city just doesn't have as many people. And maybe in a year or two, I'll move to a better city and then I will sign up for coaching. And it's like, oh my fucking God, why don't you sign up for coaching now? And I will have you moved to that new city in 2 weeks from now, like Taylor has and other guys. We will fix whatever problems you're going to throw at us. There's a really great way of reframing it that Alex Hormozi, who's one of my favorite people, that he has. When you're sitting there thinking to yourself, now's not the right time, or I've got a lot of shit going on, or I'm busy, or I'm not in the right city, or I'm not in the right headspace, or I just need to solve this problem first. When you're sitting there doing that, you're making such an incredible fallacy because you're telling yourself that you're only going to make progress and that your goals are only important to you when everything is perfect. You're saying this is the only time I'll make progress when everything is perfect. So let's say you wait till everything is perfect and then you start making progress. You do the hard work, you grind, you do all of that. And then something comes up. Life throws a curveball, which life does every fucking couple of months. And you're going to say, well, I got to pause. I got to stop. I've told myself and I've started this habit of only making progress when everything is perfect. And so you can ask yourself the question, do I think that for the rest of my life, I am never going to have life throw a curveball at me? Do I think the rest of my life is going to be smooth sailing? The answer is obviously fuck no. Yeah. And so why would I wait until things are perfect?
Yeah, it's not a position of authority or power to be in over your own life.
Correct. You're sitting there saying, I don't have any responsibility over this decision. It's the rest of my life's fault. It's the outside world's fault. When the outside world sorts itself out, then I will sign up for coaching, or then I will really care about my goals and my ambitions and what I want, my desires. And the second thing to think is, if you can sign up for coaching, if you can make big progress, and that is what the coaching is, if you can make big progress when life isn't great, holy fuck, what are you going to be able to do when life is great? And then the next time life throws a curveball at you, you can go, motherfucker, I know how to handle this. I started my coaching. I started my journey in this really difficult period of time. Life's going to throw me curveballs. Cool. I already know how to handle that. I've learned a bunch of mindset shifts. Andy and the rest of the group have taught me a bunch of reframes and a bunch of ways of viewing these or thinking about these problems. I've gotten the tools to handle a dark or a difficult time rather than waiting till everything is perfect. And then I never learn those tools. And then when I do go through a dark or difficult time, I'm fucked. Any final shout outs?
You mentioned earlier that you're talking about how you kind of started to view yourself as more of a mindset coach than a dating coach. Your coaching obviously still encompasses dating, but
Sure.
Yeah, I'm glad and grateful to encounter you on your own personal journey where you're working more on mindset stuff. Really happy about that. Really glad to work with you on the mindset stuff. Me going to that social situation and acting totally differently, that's because my mindset was different. So working on your mindset really just pours into every avenue of your life. And I think that's kind of the realization you had where you were just focusing on dating and then you stepped back. I asked Cam, what was the biggest thing he noticed that changed about you over time? And he said that in the beginning, you were just the sex guy. And Cameron was saying he was going to this mindset stuff. And then you rubber banded way ahead of him. And you were mindset. I'm really glad that you're doing that stuff. Yeah, I'm glad we got to work together on it.
I think it's super beneficial because I think, like I said, mindset and beliefs affects the entire outcome of your entire life. If you want your goals, you need to change your mindset. You said you're excited or that you're glad that you got to work with me. I'm excited to keep working with you. You're staying on in the coaching program. And
you can't get rid of me. Yeah.
I don't want to. You're one of my favorite clients. And now I say that to a lot of my clients because I really love my clients, but I get a hell of a lot of joy out of working with you. Especially some of the deeper conversations that we have. The questions of what is the meaning of life? What is my purpose? Why am I here? What is fulfillment? How do I make sure that I don't move the goalposts and become unhappy with what I'm doing? How do I make sure I achieve my goals in an ethical way where I feel like I'm adding to the world rather than just trying to take and get whatever I want? So I love our conversations and I'm super keen to keep working with you.
Right before I worked with you, I did this psychedelic journey, had this really beautiful realization. The heart of the world is love, essentially. I feel in a lot of our deeper discussions, we got to really look at like, how could that be true, that like the heart of everything is love, or the heart of the universe is love, and that like everything in the universe is good? How could that work on like case by case basis? We got to like look at all these different examples. So in a way, like you helped me kind of like integrate that experience into my life, like see how that could actually play out.
It's been a blast, man. It's been amazing working with you. It's going to be amazing continuing to work with you.
You too. Yeah. Like, again, I'm like really grateful for all the stuff that you added to the discussion on when it comes to like dating and mindset stuff. You've really like taken what was there and just like added so much to it. Almost, I feel like brought it out of the woods. I like couldn't be more grateful to you for that. Like you talk about in some of your stuff, like the red pill stuff, like I'd read some of that stuff too. And there's just like something inside you can feel is like missing from the discussion there, you know, like you can just like, for me, I could just like feel it. There was something like not quite right. Like there's definitely some truth there, some interesting concepts, but like some things like missing. And I feel like you just added so much to that discussion, like honesty, like a lot of your stuff is honesty. And that's what kept me like interested in your stuff, is like, it seemed like you're a guy who was doing things with honesty, like who felt good about himself at the end of the day. Like that was what I really wanted, was like to do the things I wanted and like feel like I'm a good person at the end of the day, you know, feel like I'm being honest with everyone. Yeah. I'm just really grateful to you for adding all the wholesome honesty stuff that you added to the discussion there.
I appreciate that. That's the mission. Do all of this in a loving way that we can all be proud of ourselves, or at least happy with ourselves. Absolutely. I appreciate you coming on.
Yep. Thanks, Andy, for everything. And yeah, looking forward to continuing.
Hell yeah.